Hello there and welcome back to my retro watches. What I'm intending to do here is a series of videos really on the restoration and the refinishing of a Seiko dive watch, a 7002 case, which is here, and it's my first attempt at a dive watch, but I know these are very popular with you guys, so let's see what we can do with this. Bring it in a bit closer. We've got some scuffs around the lugs, which I guess are where people have tried to get the bezel off over the years. There's a telltale sign here, there's a little line, and there's another one on the other side. So to me, that's been in a vise or something. Probably should try and get the case back off. The case back has got some quite nasty scratches. I've seen this sort of thing before actually. There's not a lot you can do about it. To try and polish those out it requires a hell of a lot of work, and then it sometimes deforms the shape of what you're trying to do. So you've got to leave some witnesses in the in the case. There has to be some sort of compromise, I guess. So we're going to put some mirror finish on here, or bright finish, and eventually these are going to be all brushed in all these areas here. The case back, incidentally, I'm probably going to leave well alone. Experience tells me that if you try and start polishing these things, other than a light polish to shine them up, trying to get scratches out, you're going to take off all the etching, all the writing, and certainly with the Seiko divers, where you've got the tsunami wave emblem, the last thing you want to do is polish half of that out. Starts making the thing look like a fake. So before we start doing anything, it was a case of showing you some new kit, because I haven't done a video for quite some time, and go over some of the old things that I've been using as well. Certainly if you're a beginner and you want to have a go at it yourself, a lot of this stuff can be bought really, really cheap. The first thing I've got is this. Let me just turn the camera a little bit. You have to excuse me, but we're in my garage, which is typical man garage. It's full of crap. This little Parkside hobby grinder was a bargain find. I found this in a shop called Lidl. Most of you Europeans will know that. It's like a supermarket chain. You can get these on eBay. I've seen them. This Parkside manufacturer, I'm guessing it's probably Chinese, but it's branded as Parkside. This cost me, I think, 20 UK pounds, and it has been a revolution for me. I come from the abrasive background. I kind of know the products that you should use. Buying tooling is another matter. So professional watchmakers and restorers have a bench grinder with a taper spindle like this, usually one either side, and they're big things, and they're going to cost a couple of £100. I like to do everything on the cheap. This came up, and what's so special about this is, one, it has a very small taper spindle, also has a variable speed, and that is worth its weight in gold. It really is. I've seen professional bench grinding machines with taper spindles that don't have vary speeds, and people have to then get used to the one speed thing all the time, which is, you get used to it, but it's not ideal. So for no money, this thing is great. Okay, it's got two little grinding wheels. Never go anywhere near them unless I'm sharpening a lawnmower blade or some screwdrivers, and you've got to make sure you've got the guards up, because I'm going to be working in this area, and the last thing I want to do is touch that grinding wheel, because that will take my finger straight off. The compromise with this machine is that it's got a hell of a lot of torque in it, and it doesn't stay still. So you've got to find a way of clamping it down. Now the designers of this decided not to put a hole in the bottom where you could actually clamp it to something. I used my little workmate bench here, and I put these blocks in either side, and I've had to pack the heck out of it and clamp it right up. It's the only way to keep that safe and sturdy. So there are pluses and minuses to this tool. A lot of my old videos, you see me use the rotary tool. I still use this a lot actually for more intricate parts. And you know, if you want to see me do a video just solely using these now with maybe some new improved parts, certainly for any beginners out there, because these are much easier to pick up, then let me know. You know, if enough of you tell me what you want to see, then I'll obviously create a video to accommodate that. So we're now going to go over some of the products that I use. Okay, might look overwhelming, might look like there's a load of stuff there, but all these can be picked up real cheap. Okay, so don't have to worry about that. We'll start off with the more abrasive type of things, because with anything to do with polishing or removing stock, as we call it, you need to come down in grades. If you start with the finest thing to try and remove a scratch, you'll be there forever. So you need to start something coarser and come down and down and down and down. That's the golden rule, really. You'll have a much better finish. If you try and rush something, it always shows at the end that you've done a bad job. So I've learned in the last 12 months really to be a real stickler for preparation. You know, the polishing part should be the last part really, and you know, making sure you followed all the steps correctly to start with, and then it pays off. So what I tend to use, or use a lot of, and I've mentioned this a lot of time before, is wet and dry paper. Everybody knows what wet and dry paper is. It's just paper abrasive. Okay, you can use it wet or you can use it dry. I always use it dry, but it's personal preference. You want fairly fine grades, so I've got 400, well, I've got 400, 600, they're all mixed up. As you can see, it says on the back here, 800 and 1500. I don't use anything finer. Sometimes I actually use something coarser. And I don't use them in sheets normally. I'll take little bits off, or I put them in my decorator's block. This is another good thing. It's made of rubber. You can buy these anywhere, and they're quite good for doing certain areas where you need the, you know, the flexibility of these things. I'll go on a little tangent for a moment, because if you wanted to do a sort of like a ground finish or a line finish, machine finish, you don't want to use something like this, because if you were going to show this, if you were going to rub this back and forth to put a nice ground finish on, the give in this, or the sponginess in this, would actually end up starting to round off your edges. I've learnt that. So what I've got, this is another part of my business actually in the daytime. This is a ground steel plate. This is tool steel actually, so it's tough, it's very flat. And what I tend to do is you get your wet and dry, and I wrap it around like so, put it down on the table, and then you pass whatever it is over that, because that flat surface has got absolutely no give in at all, and it will keep sharper edges. It takes some of it off a little bit, I suppose, depending on how you're dragging it, but it's by far the best method, no question. Right, so other things I use these sometimes, and you can buy these again. You can get these on eBay or online, any of your watch wholesalers. And these are sticks, abrasive sticks they call them. All that's on them is wet and dry paper, various grades. They start coding them differently where I get them from. I don't know whether this is a standard, but for instance 0 or 80 is the finest, 03 is a little bit coarser, and 0 is coarser still, and it goes up into then the proper numbers like 1 and 2. They're quite useful again if we were doing an example on this case here, we wanted to get into that lug. You've got a lot of control, and again you've got the rigidity of the wood in order to give you the cut that you want. So these are quite useful. This was made from Bergen, which are a well-known watch tool manufacturer or supplier. And all this is like a 3-in-1 buffing tool. So it has 3 different types of abrasives. You've got a coarse, well, not even coarse, this, it's still fine, but you kind of got fine, finer and finest. And again, for the amateur out there and the beginner, these sort of things are pretty good actually, that you'll get a reasonable finish without having any electrical tooling. I bought it just out of curiosity. You can see I've used the heck out of it. If you didn't want to buy something like this, buy the stuff that your wife or your girlfriend would use on her fingernails, because some of those, certainly if they're nice and soft and fine, are just as good. And I've got one here as an example. This one's a bit coarser. You can hear it there. But again, you know, that cost me 50p for like a pack of 5 or something. Really good things to have. Other things I use, I have these abrasive sponges. So I'm fortunate enough to get these through the industry that I'm in, but again, you can buy these. Incidentally, I am thinking of like putting a kit together to perhaps list on eBay. So again, if anyone's interested in some of this, you know, I need some feedback really, because if people give me enough feedback, then perhaps I'll do something and try and help all you guys out, so you've got the same sort of kit as I've got. This one is just, it's called aluminium oxide. It's like a real basic abrasive. Again, because it's got give, and it sounds rough, but this is really smooth. This will be ideal. I'm out of shot there. This will be ideal on some of these more tricky parts on the lugs here, when we're going to try and prepare that later on. Usually when you see black or grey abrasive like this, same with the wet and dry, it's black silicon carbide. And black silicon carbide is a very sharp abrasive. Okay, that's why you see it in, you know, in all the different forms. Silicon carbide is sharp, which means that it can cut better and it can cut harder or tougher steels. Cases, all the cases that you're ever going to polish are going to be stainless. Don't ever try and polish anything that's chrome plated, because chrome plating, depending on how thick it is, will just come off. The only thing you can do with that is just try and bring it to a shine. So if you're looking to try and restore any of your chrome plated cases, forget it in my eyes, unfortunately. Anyway, so black silicon carbide is very good on stainless steel, especially. Stainless steel, certainly in my industry, is a bit of a pig. People complain about it because it's difficult to work with. So there are products around for it. And these, again, you might be lucky to find these in your hardware stores, in your decorating areas, but you're looking for one that's quite fine. If it's really rough, it's no good for this. Lastly, I don't know if any of you are in, it's not lastly, I've got some more stuff here. Well, I'll do that first. Industry knows this as Scotch-Brite. It's not really Scotch-Brite, because Scotch-Brite's a trade name for 3M. Anything else that's a similar product cannot be called Scotch-Brite for that reason. As I've said before in some of my other videos, I use a brand called Merca, partly because we sell loads of this in our business, and it has really wide ranging applications. And I use these 3 colours now. The maroon is classed as very fine, but by very fine, if you're looking at the grit size, if any of you understand grit sizes, this is only around about a 320, something like that, so it's still quite coarse, but it's really useful for brush finishes. I tend to use this particular one more for a brush finish than I do anything else. But you could use this as preparation for polishing. So you can go over it with that. The grey one here is ultra fine. UF is for ultra fine, and you would see the difference if you've just come off that and then you start using this on a piece of steel. You can see the differences in finish. And then lastly, this is that is about 1,200 grit, something like that. The Merlon Total, as this one's called, is a bit more of a specialised product. You can see it's very thin. You can almost see my fingers all the way through it. And this is super ultra fine. So this is somewhere up in the 2000s, I think, or 3000 grit. And I won't say it gets something to a shine, because it certainly doesn't compared to polishing. But it's probably the last stage you'd ever want to use if you were going down that route. Okay. If you've got nothing and you don't want anything and you're just watching this video out of curiosity, but you want to make something shine a bit, I don't know if any of you watching are in my Facebook group, but I gave some advice to one of our members who hasn't got any of this tackle and he wanted to polish some of his stuff up, and I said get some metal polish. I recommended Autosol. This is for your car chrome or your motorbike chrome. But it is just a metal polish, so it's a really fine abrasive in the paste, and you just apply that with a cloth. You know the drill. You rub it in, let it dry a little bit, and rub it off. And Rob, who's in the group, the results he's had on that, I've been quite blown away, to be honest with you. So if you don't want to do anything, but you just want to improve something and give it a bit of a shine, buy some of this. Dirt cheap. I think in the UK at least it's about £3 or £4 for a tube of that delivered, and believe you me, you're never going to use all of that on watches anyway. Okay, finally, for the last bit of this, the introduction video, if you like, is the polishing stuff itself. So you may have watched some of my other videos, I don't know. In some ways I've been a little bit embarrassed by some of them, because they were done quite a few months ago, where I was still a little bit green and still experimenting. I've had some good feedback on some of them, and I've had some not so good feedback. So, you know, I've moved on a little bit and experimented and spoken to professionals. Quite frankly, you know, in the business that we do, in my day job, we're dealing with companies who are finishing stainless steel parts for Bentley, for instance, and they've got to put mirror finish on. So it's big industrial polishing. So, you know, I've just had some sound advice and acted upon it, really. So what I've got in front of me here is some polishing compounds. So polishing compounds are just basically different types of abrasive grit in a wax, or in a I don't really know what they make it from, if I'm honest. I don't think it's a particularly oil-based product. However, you get different types of grits and different types of finishes with each sort, and I've only got 4, but there are loads and loads. But I've found that these 4 work well for me, and some of them were actually recommended by another watchmaker who's a professional at restorations. So, you know, if a professional is telling me what to buy, I can't ignore that advice, can I? So what is important is the type of mops. We call them mops, but you know, the wheels really, I suppose. So let me just go through some of these for you. So this is the roughing one, so this is the beginning one, okay? And for this little machine here, this is a 2-inch or a 50mm wheel, and this is called a sisal. And sisal is a type of plant. I don't know if you can see in there, I'm trying to show you. If any of you know the sport of darts, it's what a dartboard is made of, is sisal. It's you know, you can hear it, it's very coarse, it's very hard, and this is stitched, as you can see, with some cotton either side to hold it together. When you first get these, they look all nice and new, and you put them on the spindle and bits of it fly off everywhere, but they cut really well because they're quite coarse. How it works on these, incidentally, you just have this is called a taper spindle. It has little grooves on it. I don't know whether you can hear that, you probably can't see it, and you just push these on. So I'm going to just wind that onto the machine like so. That's all we need to do, and that's on. It's not going to come off. So compounds are important because of the stages. They're colour coordinated, but they also, you can see where I get this from. So I bought this from a place called the Polishing Shop .co.uk, and Andy, the owner there, supplies these to the industry. Now these come in really big long, I can't do it with my two hands, they come in really long big bars for industry, and he slices bits off them and sells them to hobbyists such as me. Now I'm going to see if I can get this in focus, because what we're looking for on here is down the bottom here. Okay, so the stats, so it's got a cut factor of 5 and a gloss factor of 3. So what that basically means is that's got a high cut rate, not so good shine rate. Does that make sense? I certainly hope it does. So you'd be starting with that type of abrasive, basically, combined with a coarse type of wheel. And you can get some pretty good results straight away using that, as we'll find out as I demonstrate it in the next video. Okay, so we move on to the next wheel and the next compound, and we're on to cotton wheels now. Okay, so we're not on sisal anymore, we're on cotton. This is called a close stitched cotton mop. As you can see, plenty of stitching in it, and it's closed. It's nice and tight. Okay, I wish I had some new ones, it might make it look better. And oh, incidentally, it is important you never mix them up. Always use the right wheel for the right compound. You know, if I use that compound on this wheel, it then contaminates this wheel, you know, so then you're not going to get your best finish, certainly if you contaminate the last one when we get to that. So anyway, close stitch, it's nice and hard. What happens here and here to an extent is you get burnishing, so you're trying to remove a bit of steel, but you're also putting heat into it. And so the workpiece or the watch case in this case, it gets really hot. Okay, but you kind of want that to happen because on a molecular level, things start changing as well to the steel. So that's the second operation, and then I'll show you the chart on here. So the green one, okay, hopefully you can see that. That's a cut 7 and gloss 5. If you remember, the last one was a cut factor of 8. We've come down a little bit, but we've also got a little bit of shine in there. Okay, so that's that one. The next one, still on cotton. And this is an open wheel, as you can see. Look, nice and loose, so loose stitched cotton wheel. And what that does, I can't find the watch case, so instead of, you know, the hard one not really having much give, you know, this will actually sort of overlap, and you know, it's a gentler, I think that's what I'm trying to say, it's a gentler approach to you know, or a softer approach to the polishing, because at this stage you're starting to try and get your really bright shiny finish. So cut factors, you'll see it starts changing dramatically now. So we have a cut factor of 4, a gloss factor of 8. So, you know, a high shine, not so much cut. So basically it's a much finer abrasive to bring things into the luster that what we're trying to aim for. Okay. The last one, it's the last one I use, believe it or not. Certainly on the charts that I looked at, there can be another 2 levels past this, but really I don't think that warrants, it doesn't warrant it. So now we just have a soft cotton wheel. It's got 1 row of stitches, and that is really soft, really open, as you can see. And you know, you're not going to get so much heat in the job with this. It is just really bringing it up to that last buffing stage and nice shine that you'd get from that. I think that's pretty self-explanatory really, all of these ones, but it's just so you know, if you are interested in this sort of thing, that's what you want to, this is, you know, these are the things that you might want to consider buying. Even if you can't get these from the polishing shop, or you can't get them from me, because I'm planning to try, like I say, I'm planning to try and do some kits. You should be able to find these across the world. Okay, polishing happens in every country that I know of. It's just a case of doing a bit of homework and trying to find the different stages. The wheels are self-explanatory. You know, these, they might not say cut factors, they might say grit sizes, and if they say grit sizes, you're just thinking about the higher the number, the finer it is. So if it's 2000, it's fine. If it's 40, it's really, really coarse. Okay. Right, keep digressing. The last bit. So let's see if we can get that into shot. We've got 1 cut factor and a gloss factor of 9. So it's the polar opposite, really, of the one that you start with. And I think, really, at this stage, I've rambled on for 26 minutes according to this. That's quite a long introduction for anybody to suffer through. But I'm just hoping, because some people that I know, certainly in my group, have said, you know, I want some basic understanding from a beginner's perspective, that perhaps this will help. So I hope it does, and if it does, please let me know. So I hope I haven't wasted 30 minutes of your life and my own life. So I'll end it there. Thanks very much for watching, and if you get a chance, don't forget to check out my Facebook group, which is Retro and Vintage Watches and Restorations. We're all a real good friendly bunch in there, plenty of help to be had. Thank you.